Hey Declan, thanks so much for filming this video with me. I know you really wanted to be present for the whole experience with the students, but we're doing the next best thing because you're at a wedding. So can you please introduce yourself and share how you came to work at the Gold Coast Public Health Unit?
My name's Declan and I'm a proud descendant of the Bidjara. I'm also a student up in Brisbane at the University of Queensland. I'm studying a Bachelor of Science in Public Health and Statistics. Now I found out about the cadetship reading a uni newsletter that I wouldn't normally read, which had the cadetship advertised down the bottom.
So good, and we're glad that you stumbled across that newsletter. Day to day in the Public Health Unit, can you give us a little bit of an idea of some of the work that you get involved with?
Look, it's full of so many practical different things that are related very closely to like the stuff I'm doing at uni, but in a much more practical way. So I'm doing things around research, I'm getting engaged with the community, a lot of community engagement sort of work, which is really interesting. It's quite a broad scope, the work that I do.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Recently, you actually had a pretty special opportunity and you were able to visit the area where your First Nations connections actually come from. Can you share some of the learnings or some of the experiences that you had while out on country?
So I think when thinking about that trip out on country out in Charleville, I kind of split it in my mind into two separate things. There was a lot of personal learnings and a lot of personal experience building for me. And then there was also a lot of professional stuff. So I think personally, of course, I was meeting family out there and really understanding a lot more about my own heritage and my own connection to that country out there. And then professionally, it was really interesting to see, I guess, a rural healthcare landscape in Australia and to see the different ways that they approach things out there, especially, around like comparing to an urban healthcare system like we've got here on the Gold Coast. There's a lot of clever ways that they have to approach things out there that we don't here.
That's some really important observations, and I think we can get, particularly when we're studying, we can think that the world looks a certain way, but as you're just sharing, by leaving more of an urban or city-based environment and actually going a few hours, west of the coast, you've been able to experience, how things can be done differently so that people are still able to access healthcare.
No, absolutely, and I even think that's highlighted by, for instance, the RFDS, the Royal Flying Doctor Service, which serves rural communities out there that you wouldn't see and you wouldn't know that service exists.
Yeah, it was
here on the Gold
pretty
Coast.
cool going on a little plane, wasn't it? And as they said to us, that plane was literally an intensive care unit.
Yeah, insane. Like this real cramped little space.
Yeah, no, very cool. Thank you for sharing. You, in your role as a First Nations cadet, have a really important job, and that is to be part of a First Nations workforce that's embedded within a health system. Why do you think that's important?
I think it's so important to embed First Nations people into the health workforce at so many levels in so many ways, because the health service, exists to serve everyone, and as such, it should have everyone working into it and represented into it, absolutely. And I think, I guess anecdotally, obviously I'm white presenting, so my interaction with the healthcare service is very different to some aunties and uncles that I have. But I know like programs like the Indigenous liaison officers and other staff that help with access into the healthcare service. I think a lot of that sort of stuff's really important, and is really why it's important to have First Nations representation in the health service.
We know that it helps to make people feel safe, makes them feel listened to and heard as part of their healthcare journey. So just building on what you're saying, it is extremely important to have this First Nations lens, and that's why it's great that we have cadetship programs, so that while you're studying, you get a glimpse into, what potential professional pathways might look like.
Absolutely.
Okay, one more question for you. You're currently leading a research project about vaping and young people. Can you share why this work is important and why here at the Public Health Unit we decided to invest some time and energy into understanding this more? And what are some of the things that you are learning through the journey?
Okay. So I guess when I started the cadetship, it would have been a little bit over a year ago now. I was only a year out of high school, and obviously in high school, especially when I was graduating, you'd see vaping was so much more common than maybe years prior. And I think we had a quick look at maybe what was out there as far as resources go for our work at the public health unit, and the resources weren't very good, in my opinion, as a young person. So we wanted to see what other young people thought about resources as well, so we could try and develop something that works better for young people, rather than resources that don't really speak to young people. So with that, we've been doing like a scoping review into the literature to see what does and doesn't work in vaping resources directed at especially high school aged students. Yeah. So I think some of the key learnings that we've got from this project is that there's just such a diverse range of approaches that are used in these anti-vaping resources. So there's some around strengths and deficit-based approaches to their framing, and then there's also just a diverse range of types. So there's social media, school-based posters, and even some VR ones, which are really cool. So there's quite a range of different types of resources, different methods of resources. And then we're also hoping to use some of these findings to then go into high schools and develop some resources, co-design some with local high school students, to really try and make sure they resonate and really work well with students here on the Gold Coast.
It's such a great project, Declan, and I couldn't think of anyone better to be leading it for the public health unit. So thank you for spending some time on the couch, and we hope you have a great time at the wedding.
All right, sweet. Thank you so much.